Welcome back. Well, right now we're getting into the meat of the matter that we have for you today, which is a statement released by the presidential spokesman, Mr. Bayo Onanuga, saying that the president is honoring the memory of martyrs from Ogoni land, the Ogoni 9, led by Mr. Ken Saro-Wiwa, who brought to light the degradation that was currently happening in Ogoni land in the Niger Delta of the country. Well, we are speaking this morning with Mr. Ledum Miti, who is a former leader of the Movement for the Survival of Ogoni People, which was a group that was led by the late Ken Saro-Wiwa. And this group had also requested the president to honor the memories of these people. And it does appear that the president has listened to their request. But we'll be asking, just how this statement came about and how it has been received by the people of Ogoni land. Mr. Ledum Miti, thank you so much for your patience this morning, and thank you for joining us on Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much. Good morning for having me.
Well, quite a thing has happened. This is something that, we thought had been forgotten, but it does appear that almost 2 decades after, precisely 19 years after the Ogoni 9 died in the hands of government officials, this was a state-sponsored, I'm reluctant to use the word, well, let me use the word execution, because the Ogoni 9 were executed. They were said to sentenced to death, to die by hanging. And we still remember just how sad a day it was for Nigerians. I still have very, very vivid memories of where I was, with my family clustered around a transistor radio, trying to see whether attempts to save the lives of these 9 people was going to yield fruit. But sadly, we heard on our radios that attempt for clemency and mercy never came through. So to think that 19 years after, this honoring, this mention of their names has come from the highest quarters, how do you feel about this?
Well, first, let me put it in the correct perspective. It's actually 29 years ago that it happened. And to put the president's first, while applauding the president's statement, which I think was a good one, let us put it in the perspective. The president was honoring just not the Ogoni 9. In my view, it talked about the martyrs of that struggle. That goes more than the 9. It includes the 4 chiefs that were murdered, whose death were also used as an excuse. The Ogonis ourselves, in trying to bring in reconciliation amongst ourselves, we have gone to acknowledge the 13. Instead of 9, we said Ogoni 13 as martyrs. And it goes beyond even those people. There are several people that were killed during that struggle. We are talking about 2,000 people that were killed in the raids that went to communities. I remember some very, pathetic stories. Soldiers were raiding communities, and there was this particular family on a rainy day while soldiers were coming, and they broke into the house. Husband and wife were in bed, and one of the soldiers just said, "Look, you people are enjoying while we are under the rain," and that was it. And someone was shot and killed. There are several people who went on protest and they were killed. All these are the martyrs that have been honored. And I think that more importantly, we should see it as a symbol of that commitment that Mr. President has said. And for me, that is the most important thing, his commitment to fostering dialogue, reconciliation, and healing. I think that's the most important part of that statement. And I think that we as Ogonis over the years, while we started this struggle, have always opted for the non-violent option, which means the underpinning of which is dialogue and reconciliation. And I think that it will be most gratifying if we follow through this commitment Mr. President has made in the days ahead to start some process of real reconciliation by commencing some dialogue that respects and honors the sacrifice of the past and how to build on the future. So it's a good thing. And I think that it is important we stress the point, because this president can relate with what the Ogonis went through. This president was in exile with us. We were together in the, what we would call the trenches in those days. We were together in exile, holding meetings together. And it was there, he understands exactly what the pains were. And so when he talks about healing, I can understand where he's coming from. And I think that more than any other president that has ruled, he should be in a position to be able to push through these processes, which we think will now make the honoring of heroes and martyrs of that struggle worthwhile.
There are those who will say that perhaps this process started a bit earlier with the acknowledgement of the degradation that had happened in the Niger Delta, particularly in Ogoni. And when the United Nations, released that report that, the degradation was going to take over 30 years to clean up. And we saw the move by the federal government to set up High Prep, which is supposed to be, trying to clean up the land now as we speak. Why would you say that this particular move by President Tinubu is an addition to that, or is even more significant than what has been done so far in trying to restore the land?
Well, I think that when you are looking at the Ogoni struggle, it transcends more than what happens in Ogoni and, in fact, in Niger Delta, because today the whole issue of corporate social responsibility was triggered off by the Ogoni struggle. The world now takes the issue of the environment and how multinationals treat local communities more seriously. And therefore, when you look at what has happened in Ogoni, I wish that I could say that even the cleanup had been done better than what it is. But I think that this statement of recognizing sacrifices and then opening the door for reconciliation is more embracing than the aspect of the cleaning of the environment, which I and among some other people have some reservations about how good it is being done.
I mean, I want to be able to talk a little bit about the theme for this year's commemoration. After price comes prize. And listening to President Bola Tinubu talking about honoring the memory of the Ogoni 9, he says that we're honoring their memory by recognizing the sacrifices made and pledging to strive for a future characterized by peace, justice, and sustainable development for all communities, particularly those in the Niger Delta. Is this enough, a commemoration, or is there more that he could do, to honor the memory of the Ogoni 9?
There's always more that can be done, but what is gratifying is that at least there is some recognition that we can use the standpoint of remembering the Ogoni 13 and other martyrs of this struggle to now bring about that process of reconciliation. And I think that what seems to have been lost in the years has been some commitments that were even made by previous governments during the Obasanjo administration. That government also made a statement and even said that, look, appropriate national monuments or institutions will be named after these Ogoni 13 leaders. We've not seen that happen. So clearly there are many things that could be there. But I believe that in this process, if this is followed through of some dialogue and that respects the views of all the parties, I think some of these issues should come up and perhaps addressed.
It brings up the conversation about minorities and communities that are dealing with the issue that the Ogoni people are still grappling with. I just heard you say that you still have some reservations about the way the cleanup in that place is being done and the future for the people there. Talk to us a little bit about the situation right now and what hopes the Ogoni people would be having, since we have a president who has a listening ear for the Ogoni people and is trying to honor these people who lost their lives, tragically trying to save their environment. In your view, what's the situation on ground now, And what can this administration be doing to make it better for the people of Ogoni land?
Well, right now, we have got into, first, let us again put it in context, as you said, about the minorities. And I think this is one of the things that also came up in the president's statement. The Ogoni struggle has become more of a metaphor, more of a symbol of a larger struggle for justice that transcends not just the Ogoni landscape, but even the rest of the Niger Delta. So my view has always been, if you deal with the Ogoni situation well, in the basis that is, people look at it and say, well, this is a great thing you have done there. You are sending a message, a positive message. One, that non-violence can be rewarded. Two, you are sending a message for other people to have hope that we can also succeed in getting our environment cleaned in a respectable manner. So these are some of the things that we must put in context. Having said that, we have in the past, the way that the cleanup has been done, in my view, it has not been done in a manner that we will say that this is what we look forward to. But I believe we can still look at it and improve on them. I can tell you that even the United Nations Environmental Program, that whose report the cleanup is supposed to implement, had come to the level where they themselves said they do not want to be associated with what is going on. In fact, in one of the reports I read, they referred to what is going on as environmental vandalism. And that is not a very nice language to use about areas that you want to stand out as the model that others should copy. So I believe that right today, the legacies of the past are things that we must look at. You are hearing of the multinational shell that was there trying to divest, and stories must be told. We must be able to have a conversation about one of the relics of the pollution of the past. What are we going to do with it? So these are some of the conversations that I think is more important. I am one of those who believe that conversations will bring out the issues and resolve in a manner that all the sides will be happy. And this country gains a lot by the resolution of the Ogoni situation. It has, profound international attention, because, the Ogoni thing stands out as one of those issues that many people anywhere in the world that do not even know where Ogoni is on the map, but they relate with what the Ogonis are saying. And so once we get it right, we are also getting a positive public relations or international image issue that is now resolved. It can make communities all over the world feel this is how we need to do it. I'm sorry if I sound a little bit emotional about this, because as you know, I was 29 years ago, I should have been one of those that will be remembered today. I shared the same cell with Ken Sarawiwa. We shared the same dock, and I could have been gone also. So clearly, times like this is a time that you reflect and say and look at what could have happened. But more importantly, we thank God that at least we are here today and see how we can contribute to get all that justice that led to the struggle in the first place.
Can you tell us a little bit about, that period? What was it like in that season when you have expanded the number to 13 when they were condemned to death? What was the atmosphere like? As the rest of the country, we could only listen and monitor events via the media, which was also quite restricted then. But tell us, for people like you who were in the heart of the struggle, what was it like?
Well, it's an experience that I always say that I don't even wish for my enemies myself, because for daring to protest against what we saw was injustice done to our land. We went through, something that I have not been to hell, but I think that was close to that. People were hounded. We were arrested, people were killed. The 4 chiefs that I mentioned, leaders of our people, were killed, and then the 9. And many of us, at some stage, we were all pushed into detention. And it was not a detention like what we call the correctional center of the prisons. We were being put in in the military barracks, where you used to put disused guns and ammunitions. And we were so pushed there that we only had space to just squat. You cannot even lie down. And we had to go toilet there. We had to do everything there. So we were in such a situation, being kept without anything. And many people were being, raids were being committed in communities which were indiscriminate. So once you were Ogoni, you were just already guilty, so you'll be arrested. Women were raped and families were killed. Several people maimed and houses destroyed, communities destroyed. So it was quite something that one will not feel that this is what should happen to in a civilized world that we claim to belong to. So it's one of those experiences that, as I said, I wish that one could erase from one's memory. But unfortunately, it sticks down there. But again, helps to make us aspire for something better.
Well, the president has made this statement, and I'm still trying to understand, really what weight it really carries. As he says, the president stands in solidarity with the National Youth Council of Ogoni people and all Ogoni citizens to honor those who made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of Ogoni's nation's interests. He doesn't really say, he's not naming anything after anyone. It's just a commemoration, so to speak. Do you think that it should have been more?
Well, as I said, like Oliver Twist, we always will ask him for more. But for me, in a statement, what that statement has done is sets the tone. And for me, it creates an avenue where I think in the days ahead, I would look forward that federal government looks up to maybe convening some reconciliation parley. Let us talk and start look at what can we do, government and us and perhaps even the oil companies. What do we do in order to get justice for these people so that the healing can start in earnest, in practical manner. So clearly, I think it was a good invitation to treat, if I should use that word, that tells us that, look, government says, look, we recognize the pains you have passed through. We think we are committed to fostering dialogue and reconciliation, and therefore so that we achieve healing. And so what next is more important to me than what has been said. But at least that tone, I am happy about it. I feel excited about it, that the government is saying, after all, that we should start to speak amongst ourselves and with the government to see what we can do to get a resolution of the ills of the past.
Do you think an apology, for instance, might have been more in order?
Well, I will think that if that becomes part of the thing, then that should be an outcome of a conversation.
Okay. We're not exactly very, very good about, going to the past as a people. We're not exactly very good. This is a country that has battled a civil war. In January 18, we will be, commemorating a day to our fallen heroes. And also, it's unclear whether we have finally taken it as something that we should do. Mentioning and honoring the memories of those who were lost in the Civil War. We hear it every now and again, but we haven't quite dealt with it. If, for instance, that reconciliation will take place, there's some people who will say that it should be all-encompassing. How do you think that would work if those kinds of calls were to come up?
Well, as we stated in our Ogoni Bill of Rights, there is none of the demands that the Ogonis have made that means that others are disentitled to justice. So, but perhaps this could become a model that can go to other places. So, that is clearly a legitimate call. Any person can say, look, I have an issue that needs to be dealt with on the basis of reconciliation and dialogue. That is not excluded in this, but this is, I mean, an Ogoni specific and by far a model that I think should be pursued.
You haven't told us how this has been received in Ogoni land.
Good.
There was no rejoicing, there's been no statement, there's been no meeting, nothing of the sort?
Well, I'm sure that in the days ahead, the statements will come out, I mean, in that. But more importantly, you see, people are cautious about these things. Is this just a statement or is it the beginning of a process? More of people would like to see it as the beginning of a process. And that's why you see the cautious, the caution that maybe had not led to maybe rejoicing. I don't think that in this country, many people will just take government statements and start to rejoice.
How quickly do you expect that reconciliation meeting to start? What steps would you be hoping to see next? And how quickly do you think that whatever it is the president has in mind should begin to come to fruition?
Well, if it is left in night, but clearly the government will be able to call the shots. But for me, if you ask me, even tomorrow morning, there's nothing that should stop us not to start having some dialogue, or at least the mechanism for some conversation. I will feel that it should be as quickly as possible, because that will now fit in the mood of the times.
And who are those who do you think will be involved in this particular conversation?
For me, the Ogoni people will have a leadership, and then they will have maybe the federal government side. There will also be the oil company side, and there should be a conversation looking at what people have gone through and what needs to be done.
The oil companies have always argued that, yes, they do accept that, yes, there have been degradation owing to their own activities, but they also blame vandals. They blame vandalism in the Niger Delta for a lot of what we also see there. What are your thoughts with that? For those who will say, how do we differentiate those that were caused by the oil companies and those that were caused by vandals? You know, how do we begin to reconcile these two?
Well, I have a very consistent view on these matters. If you take the claim that every degradation is caused by that once you carry that claim of vandalism and use it as a universal talisman, then the companies will not be held accountable. I know that in law, if you carry something dangerous, it is your responsibility to make sure that that thing does not escape to damage someone who is there. If you decide to have a lion as a pet, it is your responsibility to make sure that that lion is not let loose. You do not go and tell people, say, someone that you do not know has just opened the gate for the lion to go and eat, to go and cause havoc. I don't think that is an excuse. I don't think so.
I want to be able to talk a little bit about the young people who are listening to us right now, because for many people, for many young people, can you hear us?
Yeah, but I'm almost about to leave it.
Just give us a little bit more time. We'll be done with you shortly. I want you to be able to hear you talk to young people, because the concept of activism right now is one that many people are very confused about, and there are complaints about a shrinking civic space in our country. So as someone who had to go through that activism under the military, it's a whole different ballgame. But many of the young people who listen to us right now probably wondering, what are these people talking about? What happened in Ogoni? What was the struggle about? Just so people can understand what the activism was about. And I mean, you've told us what it was like, you know, when the crunch came in, when they started to tighten the space on you. But just so people can understand the spirit that led to the activism that cost the lives of the 9 who you've expanded to 13. What was the activism about?
Was about the fact that oil was being exploited in an area, in our area, and the environment was damaged, ravaged, devastated. The people did not get any benefits from the exploitation of oil on their land. And then we rose to say that is not there. We saw it that the whole, our people will be extinguished if we did nothing about it. That's why we said movement for the survival of the Ogoni people. It was supposed to make sure that we want to survive in our environment, and that is what it was all about. And we deliberately chose the non-violent method to do that.
So for the civic space right now, and people who are fighting for one cause or the other, the president speaking to the Ogoni issue is also talking about how this is, signposts for us to be able to be more inclusive with communities and with struggles, and make sure that the voice of every Nigerian, and his words, heard and respected. Let's talk a bit about some of the struggles that we have going on right now, and how these people who are championing these causes should carry themselves and do these things right now, as the president is speaking up for minorities at this point.
Well, I think that in this country, most of what we have seen as crisis starts as a shrill voice asking for justice. And when they are ignored, or in fact bullied by force, then it morphs into violence. So I think when the president says, look, this is something that we have to acknowledge, that voices are heard, I think it should be holistic and it will bring about peace.
Well, I think that's all the time that we have to be able to speak with you. I know you do have to go off somewhere, but thank you very much for making out the time to speak with us, Mr. Ledun Miti, former MOSOP leader. Join us via Zoom. Thank you again.
Thank you.
I mean, we do have to go on a short break right now, but when we come back, we'll continue with more conversations. Stay with us.